Hello, hello, welcome to your reading. So the first card here is the Nine of Swords in reverse, clarified by the White Buffalo Woman. And we also have the High Priestess in reverse on the bottom of the deck, which I feel like goes along with these two cards up here. So when the Nine of Swords is upright, it represents our own personal fears, anxieties, negative self-talk getting the best of us, which when this happens, it can be incredibly hard to tap into your intuition because, our subconscious is that little quiet voice inside of us. So if this very loud, anxious talking voice is speaking over it, it can be hard to tap into that inner knowing. The White Buffalo Woman in this deck represents these kind of sacred rites of passage. So I do feel like you are passing through something. And whenever you have initiatory rites, it's like you go through this kind of specific set of circumstances in order to level up and evolve and kind of gain access to this next way of being. And sometimes when my spirit guides have me talk about rites of passage or initiations and stuff, they have me refer to it as a weed out course in college where, there's this one thing that's going to be a part of the job or the career that's really boring and tedious. And if you are not okay with doing this, ad nauseum, this may not be the career for you, or, they kind of get the most boring or the least fun part out of the way. And if you can't make it through that, then, you won't be able to do the rest of it. So I kind of feel like there's something like that happening here where your spirit guides have been teaching you some lesson that was not taught to you early on when you were younger. Or again, sometimes if we are not taught to be safe, we are taught to be anxious. And so we have to have these different circumstances teach us that it's okay to be safe or it's okay to be seen and those kinds of things. And especially with the Labyrinth card showing up on the back of this particular deck, whenever we have situations like this, we do kind of revisit similar things over and over again from different perspectives and at new layers of depth in order to really understand and process and heal. And really understand, I think, is the key of it, where our soul comes to earth to learn certain lessons. And that kind of understanding that comes through processing, I really do think is what, certain things are about at the end of the day. So on your personal side, you have the Four of Cups in reverse, clarified by the Octopus card also in reverse. So with this card showing up in reverse, I feel like there's something that your spirit guides have been trying to make you aware of that you have been having a hard time seeing, which again kind of links back to that High Priestess card in reverse, where I think your mind again has been acting in overdrive for a while, which has been making it hard to really sit with these things and reach that kind of gnosis through processing or understanding. And with the Octopus card showing up in reverse too, it's the octopi are very adaptable. They a lot of different species have different color somethings in their skin so they can camouflage to their environment. And they're just, very smart, very intelligent creatures. Scientists have done all sorts of studies where they're solving different puzzles and stuff. So with both of them showing up in reverse, it's you haven't been able to see this thing, or you haven't been able to be made fully aware of it yet. And so because of that, your mind is also having a hard time kind of problem solving or understanding exactly what it is it needs to do in this situation. And I think that also has been causing your anxiety to act in overdrive. And I'm kind of chuckling there almost because of we'll just say your spirit guides find a little bit of humor in the situation where it's the problem keeps creating more of the problem. And they're saying it's not funny, but on the other side of the veil, it's one of those oh, look at those little human things. Aren't you glad we don't have to deal with that? But look at them, they're so cute. We love them and we want to help them, kind of type thing. And they get it. At the end of the day, I think all of our spirit guides have done their time on the other side here with us. So they do recognize how difficult this can be, especially when we don't have access to their infinite wisdom. So they do have a tremendous amount of patience for us. So don't let me or them kind of joking about that make you feel bad. Again, I think you may have been in a situation in the past where people were a little bit more cruel to you. So jokes like that may have stung a little bit more. Which again, hi, I've also definitely been in circumstances like that where I've just been bullied pretty relentlessly. And that definitely leaves an impact on you, and that can be something that's hard to process through. But again, I do think your spirit guides are working on that for you by bringing about these like helpful situations that do let you heal this at your own pace. And you are never like passing or failing at these rites of passage or initiations. You know, it is them kind of like checking in through the situation that's also there to heal you, kind of like how far you are along in that healing journey. So again, things will keep coming around, you will keep healing. And a lot of people are very understanding too, a little bit more than we give them credit for at the end of the day. Not everybody, some better than others, but I think definitely too, it's like the people who are meant for you are definitely going to understand kind of like how or why you react the way that you do, because I think they may have also been in similar situations in the past themselves. And on the external side here, we have the Seven of Cups, which is ultimately about choices and also kind of the illusion of choice as well. Ooh, and Architect, very interesting. So the reason I say kind of the illusion of choice is because in the original Seven of Cups, you know, definitely some of the cups don't have things that you would want to have or experience. Like I think one of them has like a little scorpion or something. So stay away from those Scorpios. Just kidding, I love my Scorpios. But maybe for someone that'll be really specific. Maybe just stay away from that Scorpio. But for other people too, it's like with the Architect card, this card is all about like being the architect of your own life, being this divine planner of your destiny, being the one to shape what it is that you are going to experience. But also, if you think about what an architect does, like for a house, like they create room for all these different things. So they make sure you have a place to sleep. They make sure you have a place to practice piano if you want to practice piano. They make sure you have a place to cook. They make sure you have a place to like hang out and spend time in. And they make this environment have an effect on you. They make it feel cozy, or they make it feel open, or they make it feel clean. And it's like you have this power to kind of cultivate a very specific vibe or energy for you. And it doesn't have to be what other people have told you it has to be. You know, when you get a Lego kit, they give you instructions on what to make, but the whole plot of the Lego movie is being able to create your own things kind of based on the principles that you learn from these instructions. But you use that to create these other cooler things that have little mishmashes of all the different things that you enjoy. So even with that too, with the Seven of Cups, maybe you don't have to choose. Maybe something about this healing that you're going through is recognizing that you can have your cake and eat it too. Or maybe you can have the cake and the cupcake and the French fries, and you can have whatever you want. And maybe it doesn't just have to be food, but it's like, you know, if you want to be a spiritual person, but you also want to play video games, and you also want to listen to hardcore music, and you also want to, I don't know, be an artist or be in a book club or whatever, like you can do all the things. Like you do not have to fit into like one specific mold. And I think a lot of people, and specifically the bullies in our life, kind of tell us that we have to act or behave a certain way. And I think that is this thing that your guides are trying to have you unlearn and process through, is that it's not that you are hurt and you are wounded and you have to heal, but they're saying that like you have so many more options, or there's so much more freedom, or you could find so much more joy in life around you just by engaging in the things that you want to do. But there is this wound towards that because people made you feel bad, or they made you feel shame for enjoying the things that you simply enjoy, or being the way that you simply are. And that's fucked up. That's really shitty of them. And I think especially with the Ten of Swords, again, showing up on the bottom of the deck here, which Nine of Swords feeds into the Ten of Swords. Like I do think, and again, this in reverse, like you are healing from this. Like you have felt very mentally defeated. You may have even felt depressed, or again, just like very anxious, or kind of just like, why am I even here? Like what is worth doing? Like what is it that I even want to do now? Like I just feel so put down. Like, you know, I feel dead. You know, it's like I just feel dead inside. I don't know, would you feel really alive if you had 10 swords sticking out of your back? I wouldn't. I would feel pretty dead. Yeah, Sun Bear in reverse. Like I really think somebody like took your sunshine away. There's this myth in Japanese folklore of the solar deity Amaterasu, where she becomes very down and depressed and she hides herself in a cave for a really long time. And to no avail, the other gods and goddesses are unable to get her out of her cave until Izumi, the wind deity, I think starts like laughing and dancing and just being really happy outside of her cave and eventually drawing her out. And kind of, I think what the metaphor for that is like, you can't really force yourself out of depression. Like, if you feel like your inner light has been dimmed or has been kind of snuffed out by other people, you can't bully yourself or just tell yourself to get out of it. Like, you have to be able to like find joy again in order to like bring some light back into your life. And I feel like something about your past, something I'm picking up on, has not been very conducive to that, where I think there may not have been a lot of emotional maturity. And they definitely may have like told you to just like suck it up, do better, like, like you can't cry, just like, power through it or something. And I feel like your body has definitely had enough of that. And so it has kind of snapped and said, like, no, like we need to be addressed properly. Like we need love, we need care, we need kindness. And you're going to give it to me or I'm not going to move forward anymore. And now you're at an impasse because you don't know what to do because that hasn't been taught to you before. And so I kind of think, start small with just a little bit of self-care. And that can look like, self-care doesn't have to be just taking a bath and doing your skincare routine, although it very well can be just that if that is the next step of your healing journey, which again, have also been there. Like clinical depression is no joke, and when it is a struggle to get out of bed every morning, like you just got to do what you got to do. And sometimes self-care looks like eating or drinking water. So you do what you got to do. But the very last card that we have here is Balanis, which I'm going to read this one from the book because it has a little bit of a story to it. And I actually feel like the story behind this deck does kind of fit in line with the reading, where for this deck, there's this 70-page journal about Lady Stirling essentially discovering this garden that was on her family's estate. And it used to be this amazing, thriving garden with all of these plant creatures and spirits. But for 2 generations, men were the ones to oversee it instead of the women of the family, and they started abusing it. They robbed this garden of its magic by making poisons out of the plants and, exploiting them and just selling them for their potions and stripping them bare and having no empathy for the plant that they were taking from. And I feel a little bit of that rage popping up through this card here, where it's like there has been an injustice that has been done to you, and I think on some level your soul knows that, and it feels like it didn't feel angry enough when it originally happened. And I think anger may scare you, and again, I feel like I'm just kind of channeling right now. But I think it's because of how anger was expressed by the people around you, how when they were angry, they made you feel scared. So now when you feel anger within you, you also automatically feel scared, where, our emotions serve as a thermometer for what is going on underneath the surface, where, it is not bad for us to feel mad. That is our internal temperature telling us that somebody has committed an injustice, or they did something that could hurt us, or something that puts us at a disadvantage. And yeah, kind of what I'm seeing here is just festering almost a little bit. But let's go ahead and see what this one has to say. And I feel like now that you know the context of the story, I'm going to go ahead and read this entry directly from the book. In a grove at the edge of the garden, I encountered Balanis, a hamadryad deeply intertwined with oak trees. She explained that she is bound to this garden's tree and shares its fate. Balanis explained that she is connected to everything in the garden by underground networks that, admittedly, I do not fully understand, and feels deeply for each of the lives within. I feel her light has darkened over the years of cruelty and isolation as she looks around with a kind of sadness in her eyes. I followed Faunus to this land, who is the kind of Pan-like deity that oversees this garden. It was once green and fertile. Then the men came and isolated us. I felt as if I was sentenced to death for merely existing, she said in an angered, hushed tone. I've read that these spirits are said to be usually quite cheerful and playful, but I've noticed that Balanis has become most vengeful and sad. I could tell my great-grandfather was cruel, even though he feared her. Her joy was sapped after she endured 3 generations of caretakers and what they've done to the garden. Balanis was a good companion to the women of the garden, but has been reluctant and somewhat hostile to speak with me after witnessing the abuse and neglect from the male relatives of the Stirling family. I have much to atone for. And the examination is, I read about such spirits in my mythology books. Hamadryads are directly tied to the life of the tree they inhabit, and therefore suffer the same fate as the tree. When the tree thrives, so does the nymph. But when the tree is harmed or dies, the nymph does as well. It seems like the years of cruelty and neglect from my family have darkened Balanis. Not even the cooling waters of the well softens her countenance. I feel like I should heed a lesson from Parabius and create an area for offerings to amend for the transgressions of the men in my family. And her reflections are, what are some ways I've experienced harmony with nature? How do I navigate cruelty without succumbing to it myself? How am I affected by those around me? Do I mirror their actions? Are there any areas of my life where I stagnate because of negative influence? And I feel like that last one is kind of the ticket here for why this ultimately came up in the reading, where I feel like the cruelty that you have experienced at the hands of others is kind of caused you to stagnate a little bit in your path. And again, it is not your fault that you have experienced this, but it is something that your spirit guides would like for you to heal from, because I think you would also ultimately like to heal from that. And I do think at the end of the day, there is a lot of joy and love and laughter and life left for you to experience, that I feel like maybe even as I say that, you're kind of like, yeah, not for me. I think there is. I think, don't let that person steal happiness from you twice. And I think healing can be a sort of revenge in a way too, where you can make it so it matters so little what they did that it doesn't affect you or what you do moving forward at all. And in a way, it's as if they never existed for you. And I think that to an abuser or somebody who enjoyed the impact that they had over your life, I think that is the thing that they would hate the most, is feeling that that impact isn't there anymore. And especially knowing that you were so much better off without them to begin with. So thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this reading. If you are interested in booking a personal reading with me or working with any of the decks that I used today, those are both available on my website, which will be linked down below. I will also link my other social media if you are interested in following me there. And if you wouldn't mind leaving a like, comment, or possibly subscribing to my channel, that would super help me out a lot and help these readings find the people that they're meant to. So thank you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.